Begin by saying this and asking this question to everyone who is gathered today. Why build a monument? Why was this monument behind us that we are rededicating today built years ago? The answer is pretty simple, in my opinion. Some things are so great, some efforts are so great that they should never be forgotten. Some things are so great that their relevancy spans generations and should be remembered not just for the sake of nostalgia or for the sake of history, but because their cause is good and just. Certainly the work of Mary Harris Jones or Mother Jones is one of those things. Mother Jones is probably best known for her work with the mine workers, who often face the most dangerous and difficult tasks, deadly conditions in the coal mines with few protections for their safety or their job security. She stood up against mine owners and mill owners who exploited children, putting them in dangerous jobs in order to maximize profits. The year was 1898, a few miles from here, on the other end of Macoupin County in Verdun, where an attempt to break a strike led to bloodshed and death. Miners and guards who had been ordered by the company to break the strike lost their lives. Incidents like those in Verdun and others in Pana, a few miles to the east, were commonplace across the country. Child labor, low wages, deplorable working conditions, and an economy that only worked for a privileged few. Thanks to the efforts of people like Mother Jones and organized labor represented today by many in the audience, most in the audience, who represent working men and women, those things, thank goodness, are behind us. Because of the work of the souls who lie among us today in the cemetery, working conditions are better, child labor is gone, standards of living are higher, a safe work environment is the law of the land, and we live in a better nation because of you. Thank you. And we face new challenges here in Illinois. No, it's not the company club or the end of a rifle. It's not a paid militia coming after workers to break a strike. But the challenge we face is more indirect and subtle. It is often packaged and sold to us as reform. But in my opinion, it is equally as troubling for the future of the working man and woman in our state. Everyone knows that Illinois is in a dire financial mess. Decades of politicians of both parties, have squandered resources and kicked the can down the road. Our governor hops from one anti-union position to another as we pass every day, one after another, without a state budget. He wants to turn back the clock, reduce wages and benefits for workers, lower the standard of living, shrink the middle class. Also, a few millionaires and billionaires don't have to pay a little more of their fair share. And it's not just the unions in the crosshairs of the governor in Springfield today. The governor's budget, the one that he promotes across the state, divests in the education of children who live in the grip of poverty, both urban and rural poverty, while supplementing the wealthy. Children like many who live here in Mount Olive in Macoupin County. His budget doubles tuition rates at state public universities. Making the dream of higher education, the ability to compete in a world economy, something that would be only available to the privileged few. His budget dismantles the state's child care program, forcing working parents who work, to choose welfare over employment. And his budget cuts deep into health care for seniors who paid for their home, saved their entire lives, and want to stay in their home. His budget would force seniors into more institutionalized and more expensive care. The governor believes that you turn around Illinois by paying teachers less. And the governor believes that you turn around Illinois by outsourcing jobs to other states and other countries. All of these things because he refuses to ask those who enjoy the daily privileges of wealth to pay their fair share. So I ask this question again. Why is this monument here? Here's what I think. I think this monument is a message from our forefathers to remind us that this fight has been fought before, and this fight is worth fighting again. My friends, today let's strengthen our resolve to fight like hell for the living.
My hometown of Taylorville and my home county of Christian County bears the names of two individuals who are honored on this monument. Mary Harris MotherJones came from Cork City, Ireland via Canada, not just to Mount Olive, but throughout this great country to fight for the rights of those who needed her the most. There's one story I want to make sure that gets told about MotherJones. She wasn't shy, as we all know, and I'm sure many more speakers behind me will talk about her ability to do what she knew was right. She walked right into John D. Rockefeller one day and said, "You need to go visit your mines, your fields in Colorado, because those working conditions are deplorable." Well, John D. Rockefeller took her up on that request, and he made changes. That's just one example of where one person can make a difference in the lives of so many. Today we honor her. We honor those who made this monument happen. I have to say thank you to the many men and women in organized labor who are here today, but also who did the hard work to ensure that the monument that stands behind me stands much longer than just during this celebration today. But it's everybody working together to ensure that a project goes from a dream into a reality. And our ability to take the legacy of some of the things and the efforts that MotherJones put forth is not over today. We in Washington, and it is such a privilege for me to be able to serve each and every one of you as your representative in Washington, D.C. There's so much more work to be done to ensure that those United Mine Workers that I grew up with in Christian County have their pensions that they were promised. That's the fight that we continue to wage in Washington, D.C. I'm proud to wage it on your behalf. I'm proud to be here today, and I'm proud, hopefully one day, that I'll actually get my voice back. But I'm going to leave you by saying thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for all that you've done to make today such a wonderful day. And to all those who come behind us and see this great monument, let's thank them for the efforts that we may yet know, we may yet not know, they may have on the future of this great country. Thank you.
This restored monument, the new museum, will bring more visitors to Mount Olive. And those visitors will leave with a better understanding of the American labor movement, built America's middle class, and why we need to stand with labor today. Andy Manar came through with the clearest agenda I can think of what we face today. You know where MotherJones would be in that fight, don't you? You know exactly where she'd be, fighting for working men and women across the United States and fighting right here in Illinois. We're not here just to simply rededicate this monument. We've got to rededicate ourselves to her causes. She fought for fair wages and safe workplaces, for the rights of kids to be kids and to go to school, not to be forced to work for pennies and maimed and injured in coal mines and factories. Simply put, Mary Harris, MotherJones, fought for justice and an economy that works for everybody. Who was she? In the last 3 or 4 decades of her life, she was one of the best-known women in America. Incidentally, there's a contest going on now about which American woman should be on the $20 bill. I got an idea. MotherJones ought to be on the $20 bill. She was once introduced as a great humanitarian. She got up and she grabbed the stage and said, "Get it straight. I'm not a humanitarian. I'm a hellraiser." That's who she was. Born in County Cork in Ireland. 10 years old, her family left Ireland to escape the potato famine, went to Canada. At age 23, she moved to Michigan to work as a teacher. Her salary, $8 a month. A few months later, she moved to Chicago. A few months after that, Memphis, Tennessee, just before the outbreak of the Civil War. In Memphis, she had a small dressmaker's shop, married an iron worker and a union man, George Jones. 2 years after the Civil War ended, yellow fever killed her husband and all 4 of her kids. 3 girls and a little boy, all under the age of 5. But she didn't give up. She didn't give in. She moved back to Chicago and set up a dressmaking business there. She lost that one too, to the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. For 2 decades, we didn't hear much of her. But when she was about 60 years old, think of this, 60, a time when a lot of people are winding down and looking for that rocking chair, Mary Harris left her quiet life behind and emerged as Mother Jones. She was about 5 foot tall. She was a giant in the American labor history. Organizer for the United Mine Workers, went wherever she was needed. Mine workers were always closest to her heart. But she also organized striking garment workers in Chicago, bottle washers in Milwaukee breweries, Pittsburgh steel workers, and El Paso streetcar operators. She used dramatic speeches and street theater to shed light on the hard lives of working people and to give them a voice. She battled corporate presidents and politicians. She was jailed repeatedly for organizing workers. She converted tens of thousands of Americans to the labor movement. When she began working for the United Mine Workers in 1890, the union had 10,000 members. Within a few years, that number grew to 300,000. In 1902, she was arrested in West Virginia for ignoring a court injunction that banned meetings by striking coal miners. At her trial, the prosecutor branded her, quote, the most dangerous woman in America. He said she comes into a state where peace and prosperity reign, crooks her finger, and 20,000 contented men lay down their tools and walk off the job. She was hauled before a committee of the U.S. House of Representatives and asked by the committee chairman where she lived. She said she didn't have a real address. Quote, I reside wherever there's a good fight against wrong, all over the country. Wherever the workers are fighting the robbers, I go there. Her most famous rallying cry, of course, was pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living. She chose to be buried right here in this cemetery. She wanted to be alongside General Alexander Bradley, and I believe the general is here today. Where is he? Right in our midst. General, thank you for joining us. And the other miners who were killed in the Battle of Verdun. She called them and all the miners killed in that violence her boys. If Mother Jones and her boys were alive today, we know what they would tell us to do when we leave this celebration. Fight like hell for the living. Fight like hell to preserve the rights of working people in America and in Illinois, to form and join unions, and all of the other basic rights for which earlier generations fought and too many people died. They would tell us to fight these phony right to work for less laws. We know better than that. They would tell us to fight for an increase in the minimum wage to make it a living wage so that people who go to work 40 hours a week don't live in poverty in the United States of America. And they would tell us don't turn Medicare into a voucher program and don't turn Social Security over to Wall Street. "112 years ago this week, Mother Jones led a rally in Philadelphia to focus public attention on children, these little workers who were being mutilated in the textile mills. She didn't stop there. 3 weeks later, Mother Jones, at age 73, led those child mill workers on a children's crusade march from Philadelphia to the home of President Theodore Roosevelt in New York. The kids carried banners, and one of the banners asked the question, "Prosperity's here, where's ours?" That's exactly what working families across America are asking today, aren't they? The stock market's breaking records. Corporate profits at an all-time high. Productivity shows that our workers are still the best in the world. 99% of all new income generated since the Great Recession has gone to the top 1% of wage earners in America. The top 1/10 of 1% owns as much wealth as the bottom 90% of people who live in this country. Meanwhile, America's middle class is disappearing and many middle class families are just barely hanging on. As the kids said, prosperity's here. Where's ours? In 1900, 1 out of every 6 American kids under the age of 16 was working. Today, 1 in 5 of American kids lives in poverty. Prosperity is here. Where's theirs? How can we have so many poor, hungry kids in this great nation? For 40 years, wealthy corporations and individuals have been waging a concerted effort to destroy unions and dismantle government programs that help working families get ahead, send their kids to college, retire with dignity. These same groups are trying to deny many American citizens the right to vote today. They tell us that tax cuts are the answer to everything. Well, I have a tax cut proposal. It's called the Patriot Employers Act, and it's real simple. I introduced it in the Senate. It says if you keep and create good jobs in America, pay a living wage to your workers, give them health insurance that they can count on, contribute to their retirement, hire veterans and the disabled, we'll give you a tax break. If you won't ship your jobs overseas but stay in America, we'll give you a tax break. One last story. In 1892, Mother Jones was arrested in Homestead, Pennsylvania, just outside Pittsburgh, for having the audacity to speak to striking steelworkers. When a judge asked who gave her permission to speak publicly, this 5-foot-tall Irish immigrant American looked him straight in the eye and replied, "Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams." Andy Manar is right. If we leave this memorial and forget why it's here, it'll been a nice day and good memories, and that's all. But if we leave here remembering why this 5-foot-tall lady was willing to go to jail time after time and risk her life for a lot of workers who didn't have a voice, then we're going to do our part with our vote, with our voices, with our emails, supporting people across the board who are willing to work to give those in America who work for a living the dignity, the respect, and the benefits that they deserve. She dedicated her life to it. It's great to come back and see this fabulously restored monument that's going to be here for a long, long time to come. But let's hope that the memory of Mother Jones will also be in our hearts for that same period of time. Thank you all very much.